In understanding motion in one dimension and motion in general, it is really important to understand four very important vectors. In this lesson, I will go over each of these vectors. So, if you look at the first vector, the position vector gives the location of the particle from a reference point, often called as the origin. So, if you look at this diagram, imagine this person standing at a point called O. If he is looking at us, there is a car on his left and there's another car on his right. Okay, so if you look at the car on his left, the position of the car is given as plus 700 meters, and the car on his right, it is given as minus 350 meters. So this plus and the minus here, they indicate the direction in which the cars are located relative to this person standing at the point O. So if you happen to notice a plus sign, it means that the car is in the positive direction as indicated by this sign convention. And since we deal with vector quantities and understanding motion, or in general much of the physics, it is really important to have this sign convention and then use it very carefully. So here, by placing this arrow to the right with a plus on it, is just telling us that any vector that points in that direction should be taken as positive, or if the vector is pointing in the opposite direction, you would take it as negative. Okay, so here in general, if a particle is at a location, let's say x naught, uh, in the positive direction, so you take its position as plus x naught. This 0 indicates that this is the position taken at time t equal to 0. Okay, so another thing that we need to understand is whenever we select a reference point or the origin in order to measure the position of the objects, you can always assume that there is an observer located at the reference point. And the interesting thing to note is the reference point need not be at rest. Okay, so it could be in motion. Okay, so the person observing objects, suppose the person here is standing at that location O, and then he is looking at these two cars. But in case if he, let's say, gets into a bus, and then as the bus moves away from this location, he is looking at these cars. So even then, he will be able to get an idea of the position of the cars from a moving reference frame. So the reference point is thought to be attached with the observer. Okay, so if the observer is moving, the reference point is also moving. If the observer is stationary, the reference point is obviously stationary. Often when we look at objects like cars, buses on the road, we notice that their position changes very quickly. So we need other quantities that help us understand this change in position. So in that regard, if you look at the displacement tells us about the change in position. And then if you want to figure out how quickly this change is taking place, so we have a quantity called velocity that talks about how fast the position of any object is changing. So if you look at displacement, this is simply the change in position. So if you look at the diagram here on the right, so I have shown a car at a position of 700 meters from the origin at say time t equal to 0. At a later moment in time, the car is at a position of 1200 meters. So in the positive direction. So the change in position is 1200 minus 700 is 500 meters. So this is the displacement of the car. Before we talk about velocity, let's take a look at the concept of speed. I'm pretty sure most of us is familiar with speed. But let's take a look at what we actually mean by average speed. I'm assuming we all know this, or maybe this should work as a refresher. Okay, so if you look at the average speed, it is simply the ratio of the distance covered and the time taken. Okay, now the important thing to note here is this is a hypothetical speed. So this is an imaginary speed. What do I really mean by this? So let's take an example to understand what I mean by this. So if I say that I ran 6 kilometers in an hour this morning, then we can say that my average speed in my morning run was 6 kilometers per hour. Okay. Now, this does not really tell us how fast I was really running at a particular moment in time. It just tells us that, okay, so I took 1 hour to run that 6 kilometers. Okay, so my average speed was 6 kilometers per hour. So it can lead to a lot of interpretations. Okay, so if you look at a couple of interpretations, so let's say I have mentioned two possibilities here. So one of them is I might have run at a constant speed of 6 kilometers per hour for the entire hour, which is obviously very, very unlikely. Okay, so rarely anyone could do that. Or I might have run at a constant speed of 8 kilometers for 30 minutes, and then I got tired. I took a tea break, maybe at a tea stall for about 10 minutes, and then I covered the remaining distance at 6 kilometers per hour in 20 minutes. So in each of these cases, my average speed will come out to be 6 kilometers per hour. Okay, so you have to understand this is simply a hypothetical speed. Okay, it just gives us an average idea. Okay, now what exactly we mean by speed? Okay, so we should understand whenever we talk about speed, we always mean instantaneous speed or speed at a specific time. Okay, so how fast an object is moving, or let's say if you again look at the example of my running speed, how fast am I really running at a particular instant in time. Now, when we talk about speed, the direction in which the object is headed has no significance. Okay, so the speed is just a scalar quantity. The direction has no relevance. Average velocity gives us an idea about how the position of objects change in a given time interval. So here the change in position is displacement. So the average velocity is the ratio of the displacement and the time taken. So if you take two moments in time, t and t plus delta t, a small change in time, and here this could be slightly large as well. So the average velocity is simply the displacement divided by the time interval. Okay, so the particle may be at this location P at time t. At a later time t plus delta t, the particle is at this point Q. So the average velocity is simply change in position by time taken. Now, if you look at the displacement, the displacement can be zero at times. Okay, so the particle may be at the same location during that time interval, or maybe the particle moved in either direction and then again returned to the same location. So in such a case, the average velocity will be zero. But on the other hand, if the displacement is positive, when we say displacement is positive, the particle should displace in a direction which we consider to be positive. So here the sign convention says that any vector that points to the right is taken as positive. So if the position at time t plus delta t is greater than the position at time t, so we say the displacement is positive, and then hence the average velocity is positive. On the other hand, if the position of the particle moves to a location which is to the left of the initial location. So in that case, the displacement is negative and the average velocity is also negative. So if you look at the average speed, it is never negative. But if you consider average velocity, it can be positive, it can be negative, it can be zero as well. Let's take a look at this problem to understand the difference between average speed and average velocity. So here they're saying Nikhil ran 800 meters on a straight road for 10 minutes. So let's say this is the starting point, and then he ran to the right for about 800 meters, and then he ran backwards 600 meters, and then he stops somewhere here. So this is the final spot. So this is 600 meters. So when we calculate the average speed is distance by time taken. So we are interested in the total distance covered, which is 800 plus 600, around 1400 meters. So if I write that in kilometers, so that's 1.4 kilometers, and the time taken is 20 minutes. So if I write that in hours, so that's 1/3 an hour. So the average speed here is 4.2 kilometers per hour. So if you look at the average velocity, so we are interested in the displacement. So if you look at the displacement is just 200 meters. And the average velocity is displacement by time taken. So if I write this 200 meters in kilometers, that's 0.2 kilometers, and the time taken is 1/3 of an hour. So the average velocity is 0.6 kilometers per hour. It is helpful in understanding the meaning of average velocity with the help of a position time graph. So here the position of the particle is taken along y-axis and the time is taken along x-axis. So if you follow this curve, it shows the position of the particle at various times, and then at two particular times, t and t plus delta t, the positions are given as x and x plus delta x. So the ratio of the displacement and the time taken is the average velocity. So if you look at this line joining the initial position and the final position, so you can easily see that it is nothing but the slope of the secant line between these 2 points. Okay. Let us understand what velocity of a particle means. Earlier we looked at average velocity. Average velocity tells how rapidly a particle changes its position in a given interval of time. Now, when it comes to velocity, by velocity we always mean instantaneous velocity or velocity at a specific time. So, velocity is telling us how rapidly a particle changes its position. So, it is interesting to note that it is telling us how rapidly the particle changes its position while the particle is at a particular position in space and at a specific time. So now if we need how rapidly the particle is changing its position without really like going away from that position and without looking either forward in time or backwards in time, can we really talk about velocity of the particle? It's a paradox, isn't it? So how do we resolve this paradox? To resolve the paradox involved in understanding the velocity of a particle, we take the help of average velocity. So if you look at how velocity at a specific time t is calculated, we take the average velocity during a tiny time interval, let's say delta t, near the time that we are interested in. So if you take a look at this picture, the particle is at position p in space at a specific time t. So when we want to get the velocity of the particle while it is at point P, we try to consider a tiny interval in time, either in the forward direction or in the backward direction. So here I think I have shown in the forward direction in terms of time. We take a look at the displacement in that tiny time interval delta t, and then we evaluate the average velocity, and then this average velocity evaluated for the tiny time interval is taken as the velocity. Okay, so that is how you understand the instantaneous velocity. So what we will do here is we will take an example to really understand this. Okay, so if you look at this problem, let's say a kid drops a stone from the top of a building, and here the position of the stone, okay, is given as a function of time. Okay, now using this position, we want to evaluate the velocity of the stone at t is equal to 2 seconds. To calculate the velocity of the stone at a specific time, we use a limiting approach. So here in time t, the stone attains a position x, which is given as a function of time, which is half gt square. So if I take g as 10 meter per second square, so that's 5t square. Okay, now our target time when we want the velocity of the stone to be evaluated, it is 2 seconds. So here the idea is you take a time which is either before the target time or after the target time. But ensure that these times are very close to the target time, and then during this tiny time interval get the displacement. Okay, so once you get the displacement, evaluate the average velocity by using this displacement and the tiny time interval. So you need to ensure that that times that you are selecting, either before the target time of 2 seconds or after, are very close to 2 seconds. Now once you do that, if you really look at the average velocity, you will notice that if you are really close to the target time, the average velocity doesn't change much. Okay, because the average velocity doesn't change much, that average velocity is taken as the instantaneous velocity. Okay, which is also written, instantaneous velocity is written as this is an operator in calculus, d by dt, and then it is getting operated on the position function, and then you get the instantaneous velocity. So you can learn more about this in calculus. So here the idea is to keep this time interval, which is either the target time minus a time before it, or a time after our time of interest, which is 2 seconds, minus the target time. Okay, so as long as you keep this time interval very, very tiny, you will get an idea of the instantaneous velocity or velocity at t equal to 2 seconds. So now these calculations are a little hard. So what I will do is I will just show you calculations which are already done in an Excel sheet. So by looking at those numbers, we'll get a fair idea on what will be the velocity of the stone at t equal to 2 seconds. Now let us look at numbers involved in calculating instantaneous velocity using the limiting approach. So if you look at these numbers, our target time is 2 seconds. So when I'm looking at a time interval which is just before 2 seconds, I'm taking these are the initial times, and getting the initial position and the final position. So this initial position is at t equal to 1 second, and the final position at t equal to 2 seconds. We evaluate the displacement and then calculate the average velocity. So now if you look at the times that are just before t equal to 2 seconds, as they approach very close to t equal to 2 seconds, the average velocity as a number is not changing much. So if you look at this, these are all stuck around 19.9995. Okay, the same thing happens if you take time which is after our target time, 2 seconds. So if you look at these times, so if you go away from t equal to 2 seconds, let's say 3 seconds, the average velocity is very different from 20. Okay, but if you are very close to t equal to 2 seconds, you will notice that that is not changing much. So if you pay attention to these numbers, let's say these 6 numbers, you can say that, okay, so as you stay very close to t equal to 2 seconds, the average velocity isn't changing much. So we can practically take that 20 meter per second as the velocity of the particle at t equal to 2 seconds. So that's how you actually resolve the paradox of understanding velocity at a specific time. So we can just take the velocity as 20 meter per second. If we look at the position versus time graph, the velocity can be read as the slope of the tangent drawn at a point P in the graph. So that point P corresponds to a specific point in space. Let's say the having a position x from the origin for a particle moving along a straight line, and at a time t. Now here we are not showing you the point Q which is very close to P. If the point Q is slightly away, we have a definite time interval, and in that case we get average velocity instead of velocity. But if the point Q is very close to P, we move from secant to a tangent line. So graphically we can take velocity as the slope of the tangent line drawn at point P. Now mathematically this limit of the average velocity is written as dx by dt, and then this d by dt you can read it as an operator that works on the position function and then gives you a velocity function. Okay, so this is also known as a derivative. Okay, so it's the time derivative of position. Velocity is the time derivative of position. So as one learns more and more concepts in physics, I think they'll slowly also understand and appreciate the derivatives, their meaning and their uses. Okay, so if we now look at the average acceleration, it's little like average velocity. So here again we are interested in a time interval and we are interested in change in velocity. So the average acceleration is the ratio of change in velocity and time taken. Okay. So now if you go from average acceleration to acceleration, again we mean instantaneous acceleration or acceleration at a specific time. This you might have already guessed, it also involves a limiting approach. So you get the change in velocity in a time interval which is very close to the time of interest t, and that will be like using that operator d by dt on the velocity function and get the acceleration. So acceleration gives the rate of change of velocity. Okay, now another thing that we must understand in connection with acceleration is there are few terms like deceleration and retardation. So these two terms mean the same thing. Okay, so when you say that a particle is decelerating or retarding, it means the particle is in fact losing its speed. So when does a particle lose speed? Whenever the acceleration of the particle and the velocity of the particle, if they point in opposite direction, the particle tends to lose speed. Now, there's another term that is regularly is expression of negative acceleration. Now, this sometimes confuses students. So we have to understand that negative acceleration is not uh, equivalent to deceleration. It is not synonymous to deceleration. The acceleration, whether it is negative or positive, it really depends on the sign convention that one chooses. So, as an example, let's say a car has positive acceleration, but it might be slowing down. So, let's say in this example, I have taken any vector pointing to the right as positive. Now, this car has a velocity to the left and an acceleration to the right. Okay, so the acceleration is in the direction of the let's say chosen, let's say arrow, which indicates the positive direction. The car is actually losing speed. Okay, it is slowing down, but the car has positive acceleration. Whereas if you take when the car has negative acceleration, it might be speeding up. Okay, so like in this example, the acceleration is in the opposite direction of the direction considered to be positive, and the velocity is also in the opposite direction. So here the car is actually speeding up when the car has a negative acceleration. So whether the acceleration is positive or negative, it depends on the sign convention. Okay, it is not synonymous to deceleration or retardation. This is really important to understand. I hope the meaning of negative acceleration is clear. So in the first case, the car has a velocity of 15 meter per second to the left, and the driver applies brakes. So the car will end up having an acceleration to the right, okay, which is considered to be positive. So even though the car has positive acceleration, it is actually slowing down. It is losing its speed. In the second case, the driver presses the gas pedal, so he's actually accelerating. So the acceleration is in a direction opposite to the direction that is considered positive. So the car is actually speeding up, but when you think about the acceleration has been positive or negative, it has negative acceleration. So this is very, very important to understand. I'm just stressing the point again here.